Now, the thought of packing in a dull job for a life of adventure is a common fantasy, but having the guts to make it a reality is rare. American ERIC GIULIANI had a well-paid job, but really unsatisfying, it seemed. And after a poor performance review, he decided to reassess his life. He's been traveling the world on public transport. Let's take a look at some of his overland adventure through Africa.
I knew traveling overland would be hard, but I had no idea it would be this hard. I expected the buses to be cramped, slow, and hot, but not this cramped, slow, and hot. I assumed that buses would break down, but I didn't assume it would happen just about every time I was on one. And I imagined that immigration officers at border crossings would be corrupt, but not this corrupt this soon. I've caught the bus at 2, 3, and 4 a.m. because that's the only time they leave, and I've sat underneath a kitchen sink, next to a bow and arrow, and beside several live chickens. I've been stranded on the side of the road and told to flag down the next bus, with no guarantee that one will pass by, or that it'll stop if it does pass by. I've been dropped off miles short of my destination, and I've eaten mustard sandwiches through it all because that's the only food I happen to have with me. I've prayed for bathroom breaks and legroom, and I've gotten on and off the bus through the window on more than one occasion. I've already gotten rid of half my belongings because a duffel bag with wheels is pointless when you're trying to wheel it across Africa's never-ending mixture of dirt and sand. So why do it? Why try to circle the globe using the most unreliable and uncomfortable form of public transportation possible? I guess the answer is pretty simple. I want to learn about myself, and I want to see if I have what it takes to actually do it.
And Eric, of course, joins me now. Eric, did you answer that question in a nutshell there? You want to learn more about yourself. Would you say you have?
Oh, absolutely. And I think traveling does a couple things for you personally. And for me, learning about myself through what you just saw there, through some of the challenging, hard traveling roads that Africa provides, really have learned an incredible amount about myself. And just kind of my will to continue traveling is one thing that's really stood out personally.
Now, tell me about some of the stories that you're going to remember for the rest of your life. You spoke about you giving a cookie to a kid. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just one of the most incredible things I'd ever seen. I was actually in Ethiopia, and I was somewhere in the middle of a dirty, dusty, pothole-riddled road. And the bus pulled over for just a quick little break, and I didn't really have any food with me. I hadn't eaten in about 15 hours or so, and it was one of those never-ending bus rides. And so we pulled over. I happened to have a cookie, and instead of eating it, I saw two little boys kind of digging through the trash, and they didn't look so good. And so I went over to them, and I gave the cookie to one of the boys. He was about 4 years old. And what he did just shocked me. It was really incredible. After I gave him the cookie, I walked away, but a couple steps later I turned around because I was sure he was just going to gobble it up. But what he actually did is he broke it in half, and he gave it to his little buddy that was there. And it was just the most incredible thing I had ever seen, just to see someone digging through the trash, so selfless as a child, to be able to break it in half and have the wherewithal to do that and share it with someone was just really touching for me.
Now, this, of course, has given you a different perspective on life. How has your perspective changed?
Well, coming from Miami, which is where I was living, I had a nice apartment, I had a great paying job, and I had all of these things. I had a car, I had clothes, and all of the things that that would go with a young professional lifestyle. And what I slowly started finding out is actually less is more. As I got rid of some of those clothes, as I lost possessions and I gave possessions away and I sold my car and I downsized apartments, it really became like a freeing feeling. And I kind of gained a lot of freedom. And the ability to kind of go where you want then with that freedom has really been an incredible experience to go through.
Now, you've been in Africa, and of course you decided to start in South Africa, but there was a moment in Kenya where you thought that, you might stop here, and it was because of the massacre of 147 people who were killed. We have a soundbite of that, so let's take a look.
Photo. I will have to travel from Uganda to Kenya to Ethiopia, and I will have to risk my life in order to do so. Sadly, this is the only way to go. There is no fork in the road. This is the only road me and my dream can travel down. I have sweat, suffered, and sacrificed on levels that I didn't know existed for my dream. But nothing like this. I'm tired, I'm beyond scared, I'm ready to give up. I've even started looking online for flights to Europe, which is the first time I've ever sunk so low. But that's because nothing I've ever felt before comes close to fighting the fear a terrorist group instills in you, especially when you're this close to them and this far away from home. But just before I booked a flight out of Africa, something deep inside stopped me, and it wouldn't let me quit. It felt like quitting on my dream, or any dream for that matter, was way worse than actually dying for it. And as I was looking at flights, I could feel myself slowly dying. The life was being sucked out of me like I was working for someone else again. If you have ever truly listened to your heart, then you know that when you quit on a dream, a piece of you dies the moment the dream does.
You have an incredible way of, getting your emotions out there and writing it. I really can't describe it. I've watched all of your blogs so far. It gave me goosebumps. So one thing that I won't forget, you said, I will risk my life for a dream because it has given me life.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when you do that, when you really tap into what your ultimate calling is, and when you really follow your heart and your passions, it's going to lead you down this incredible road, an incredible journey of self-discovery. And so for me, I'm so much more alive now than I've ever been, that if I were to stop and kind of go back to my old life or my old routine or the old job or old career that I have been working, that to me is kind of like a death, because now everything is so much more vibrant. Food tastes better. I'm able to travel and see incredible things and meet incredible people all along the way. And so for me, I am willing to risk kind of my life, if you will, going through some dangerous areas. And there was a terrible terrorist attack in Kenya. And the day after that happened, I had to travel by bus through that area, which is kind of a known target for al-Shabaab. And then a very similar situation happened when I had to cross the Sinai Peninsula as well. There was a skirmish that broke out and over 100 people were killed just a couple weeks after I crossed through there. And so I'm kind of willing to put myself in those positions, although I do trust my intuition and I don't take too many unnecessary risks. But my goal is to travel around the world without using any air travel. And so unfortunately, sometimes you're going to come to a kind of a fork in the road. But for me, it's not much of a fork because I'm going to keep going.
How do people react to you in Africa? You're this tall white man walking around with a backpack.
Yeah, and I think one of the things you can't see is I have a big tattoo and long hair as well. And so it's the most incredible thing. And it depends on the country I'm in, because people in Malawi will smile and wave, and they'll kind of keep their distance. People in Uganda will just kind of stare at me and not really say too much. And then in Ethiopia, people will kind of come up and crowd around me and not really say anything but kind of shake my hand. So it really varies from country to country. What I found in Kenya is people just kind of go about their business like, nothing's really happening here. So it's really an interesting thing. A lot of times people will come up and want to take pictures because I'm pretty tall. So you meet a lot of people by doing this, and then also kind of by sticking out with my size and color, you meet even more people. So it's pretty unique experience.
Now, you talked about, not even knowing how to focus on a camera, but yet you take beautiful pictures. How did that happen?
Thank you so much. I think for me, the real story of my journey actually isn't anything to do with the travel. I think my real story is that anybody can do anything they want at any point in their life. And hopefully I'm a testament to that. I had never taken a photo before I started out on this journey. I had never even owned a camera before I started out on this journey. And basically what I did is I forced myself to kind of get rid of all of those excuses and turn them into affirmations and work every single day on the camera. And I didn't even own a camera at first. I started with an iPhone, and I still use an iPhone for most of my photos. And so for me, it was just about kind of that determination and finding a way to practice it every single day. And I think that's one of the things that I've stuck to, is taking a photo or a creative photo every single day along my journey.
And lastly, you've had lots of people mailing you saying that you've been an inspiration to them. Tell us what inspired you and what advice can you give to people who want to do what you've done.
What inspired me was, and it sounds kind of crazy, but I'm actually really happy that I didn't enjoy my previous job, because I think that unhappiness forced a change, and the change is obviously kind of coming out for the better through what I'm doing right now. As far as inspiring other people, I get incredible emails every day from people all over the world, which is really becoming an incredible reason why I'm doing this now. And so I think if I could give any advice, it would be three things. You've got to have kind of unwavering determination. You've got to find something deep inside you that's not going to quit. Second is you've got to have courage. You've just got to find that extra gear every single day. And what I write about is pretty vulnerable, and I put my insecurities and my fears into the stories that I write on my website. And so you have to kind of have an extra level of courage to do those things. And then also faith. Like, I don't necessarily know how this is all going to work out, but I just trust that it will. And I don't worry about how it's going to happen. I just know that if I do the right things and I continue to kind of follow that path, that it will ultimately all work out.
All right, thank you very much. You have an indomitable human spirit. You're an inspiration to us all. We appreciate your time. Thanks for speaking to us here at Arise News. ERIC Giuliani.